Good morning. Hopefully today we won't have any breaks in service. You never know about what happens that way. But today we finished the book of Micah, chapters 6 and 7. And chapter 6 begins with the prophet saying to the people, hear what the Lord says. Rise, plead your case before the mountains. So it's listen to the Lord and then to speak on your behalf, to the mountains, to the hills, let everything hear your voice. And this would include the other countries that, are against Israel. And, verse 2 ends with, for the Lord has a controversy with his people, and he will contend with Israel. And just that reminder that, the people are sinning, and that, if God has a controversy with the people, it's because the people aren't doing what God would have them do. It isn't that God is wrong, it's that the people are doing wrong. And then in verse 3, there's a quotation marks starting here in my Bibles, and this is God speaking. He says, "O my people, what have I done to you? In what way have I wearied you? Answer me." And God is saying to him, what have I done that is so hard for you to follow, to hear, to understand? What is it that I've given you to do that is wearing you out? And, when you think about, the Ten Commandments, which are there to establish and keep order within the community, God isn't making exorbitant or outlandish requests of the people, and then he's reminding them of, I led you out of Egypt. I've done this. I've given you a land. I've driven the people out of your way. And then he says, remember what King Balak of Moab devised, and what Balaam, and he says, remember how these other kings and other leaders of other nations have come against you and warred against you, and how so often I, God, worked on your behalf so that you would know me. And, verse 5 ends with that you may know the saving acts of the Lord. So God is saying, what have I done that has caused you so much stress that you have forgotten all the good that I have done for you? And, sometimes that happens in our lives too. You can break your back and go out of your way for people, for doing things, and you can do the very best. And yet, you mess up once or twice, and that's what they remember. They forget all of the good. And, and that's, that's kind of what God is saying here. I've done so much good for you. Not that God has ever done bad for them, but you have forgotten that, and you've turned away. And then in verse 6, it starts, and the quotation marks end at the end of verse 5, and then they start new in verse 6, and this is now the people speaking. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God? Shall I come with burnt offerings, with calves? Would the Lord be pleased with this? Shall I give my firstborn? What is it that I should give God? And then the answer comes in verse 8, and this is, there were parenthesis marks ended at verse 7, and so now verse 8, is this the prophet speaking again here now? But he and it's that reminder. He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? And then the answer, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly before your God. And you think about those three things: to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And those are the three foundational aspects, I think, of religion, of faith and trust in God, that we do justice, that we treat other people fairly, and then we would hope that would happen with us as well. And then to love kindness, rather than some people seem to get pleasure out of other people's misfortunes, and that's not what we should do, but to love kindness. And then if you love kindness, then you will be kind, and you will do kindness. And to walk humbly with your God means that we acknowledge that we are sinners, that we are not perfect, that that we mess up, and we know that God is with us, and that's the whole aspect of faith, I think, is to know that God is with us at all times, and when we remember that, it's easier to do justice and to love kindness. And so that's a question mark there. And then verse 9 again starts with, the voice of the Lord cries out to the cities. And here again, now this is the prophet speaking, because they're not parentheses here, that it would be a quotation. But the prophet is speaking out, on God's behalf. I mean, you could look at these as God's words. Can I tolerate wicked scales and a bag of dishonest weights? Your wealthy are full of violence. Your inhabitants speak lies. And all of those things. I mean, these are words that were given to the prophet to speak. And then verse 14, you shall eat but not be satisfied. There shall be a gnawing hunger within you. How many times has that happened to you? You have a meal and you're full, and yet you have a craving for something more. You're whatever it was that you ate didn't fulfill some need of, some people say, I need to have some dessert, something sweet at the end of the meal, or I need to have a cup of coffee at the end of the meal, or I need, we've all experienced this. We eat, and then we get what we call the munchies, because what we've eaten doesn't satisfy us. And God is saying, in so many ways here too, that, when we worship idols, when we put our hopes and our dreams and our expectations in the wrong place, we're not going to be fulfilled. There's no amount of money, if we don't have love of family and friends, is really going to be enough to make us happy. And it's just, it's to know what it is that we need to lead and to have a full life. It says, you shall put away but not save. What you say, you'll sow but not reap, and verse 16, you have kept the statutes of Omri, the works of the house of Ahab. You've been worshiping idols. You haven't been faithful to me, and this is why things aren't going so well for you that way. Therefore, I will make you a desolation, so the words of the prophet, the words of God are coming, reminding the people of their inadequacies, and just pointing out, what it is that you need to do. Love justice, seek justice, love kindness, or do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. That comes down to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Just treat each other with that same respect and kindness that you would have them treat you with. Chapter 7 starts with, woe is me, for I have become like the one who after a summer fruit, and so this is likened, it says that it's maybe Samaria or another country that is realizing that they've been going against God, and that coming against Israel, coming against God's people, isn't what they should do. But yet, in so many ways, it speaks of Israel as well. To me, it says, the faithful has disappeared from the land. There's no one left that's upright. They all, so this isn't just, the other countries that are warring against the Israelites. In Samaria, there were a lot of Jews, a lot of Israelites that went to Samaria, as the people were driven out of Israel, and the dispersal of the Jews, the diaspora. So that the Jews are all over, and they're realizing, some of their inadequacies. And then that goes on through the end of chapter 7, and then chapter 8, it's now Israel, the people speaking out to the other countries. Don't rejoice over me, O my enemy, when I fall or when I rise. And this is a reminder for us as well, not to be happy at someone else's misfortune, not to rejoice and laugh and poke fun at somebody because they're having trouble. And it is just, that this isn't the way we should do. I mean, we should be working together. And But the people of Israel, it says, I have to bear the indignation of the Lord because I have sinned until he takes my side and executes judgment for me. So the realization is there that they're not doing what God would have them do, that they're waiting for God to come, and that he will bring the light, and he will again be their people. And verse 18, who is a God like you, pardoning iniquity, passing over the transgression of the remnant of your possession? So it's pointing out and reminding themselves of this God, full of grace and mercy, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and grace. He does not retain his anger. He delights in showing mercy, clemency. He will again have compassion upon us. And so here, they're looking ahead again, and to the promise of God's love, God's grace, God's forgiveness. And we're just, I was thinking earlier this morning, it's December 22nd, just, 3 days before Christmas. 2 more days, it's Christmas Eve, and we, it's one of the most joyous and most looked forward to holidays of the year. But yet it brings an awful lot of stress and those kinds of things as well. And just, it's a reminder that, don't take the joy out of the season. Don't push yourself so hard that to make sure you have everything right for everybody else, that you're just, a mess within yourself because of all the stress and the worry and the desire. We want to have it the best we can for others, but take care of yourself and remember that, the season is about God's gift, and the gifts that we give to others aren't meant to be such a struggle for us, but that they are to be gifts that remind us of God's love and God's grace that comes in and through Jesus Christ our Lord.